So a couple of things off the bat that I'm going to have to do is first, this is the push button, so that's what turns the starter, or what should turn the starter. I'm going to go ahead and replace that button. And then same here with the ignition switch. I got a new one there as well. And then of course, once I get the circuits going, I'm going to put a fuse block in as well, and you know, make it legit, make it so this is safe. The wiring has been completely removed. Only thing left is a mechanical line to the temperature gauge and oil pressure gauge. So now I'm gonna start fitting up the keyhole and the push button, and yeah, start wiring from there. So I'm working on getting a fuse panel put together for inside the engine bay. So I cut down this piece of stainless steel and then bent it in the sheet metal brake, and yeah, added all the different fuses, alternator, and that's like just the main fuse to the ignition switch, and then these will be all the switch 12-volt fuses. And yeah, so it turned out pretty good. Obviously I got to do the final cutting and fitting, but I'm going to use those existing brackets there. I can get out of the shadow a little bit. And yeah, so it should be all clean. As you can see, I already added some grommets and drilled some holes to run wires through, so I can cleanly run them behind the panel and everything. So it should turn out pretty good. Fuse panel is complete. Mounted up pretty nicely. I ended up having to use some, I don't even remember what they're called anymore. Just maybe tapered head. But either way, I needed that flush fit. So I was able to get that. I had to use some washers to add more thickness to, you know, to fit the conical shape and tighten down nicely, but it turned out really well. So I just got to get everything all wired up, and yeah, I'll be able to operate all the electronics from inside the Jeep instead of having to stand here to do it, so that'll be sweet. Fuses and wiring, other than the alternator, are all hooked up. Seems to be working correctly. Let me show you inside real quick. The key's off right now. Here's my ignition button, or my starter switch button, I should say. And so it doesn't work when the key's off, but you turn the key to the on position, and so we're getting somewhere. Quick update, working on getting the throttle linkage all hooked up. Hard to see, I need to grab my light, but I had to flip it around down there. I had to flip the link around to get it to pull up here instead of push. So I got that taken care of. Working on the turnaround. So I drilled a hole in this piece of, I guess, plate, you could call it, and put a bushing in it, but it's obviously, I should have cut it when I got here instead of cutting it before, because it doesn't seem to fit quite right. So I used some of the other plate that I had to put this bottom together, and so it holds pretty well, and put a, you know, tap the thread in the bottom of this shaft so it bolts in, and so it should work pretty well to bring the throttle action 180 and pull that out. So now I've got some linkage stuff, like I've got a little ball that'll bolt into that arm, and then heim joints, I guess you'd probably call them, that I'm gonna have to cut and modify this and fit one there, and then yeah, do the adjustable. I've gone ahead and gotten my throttle linkage all hooked up. So as you can see from earlier, I ended up having to modify this a fair amount. I had to bend it there, and then there used to be a little collar, it slid through there, but just with all the different angles involved here, it didn't work anymore. So luckily that popped right off. And yeah, so everything operates smooth. I've got the return spring just kind of strung up in there for right now. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to mount it, but it works right now. So I'll think about it later. It's getting late, so I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm working on finishing up the alternator wiring, so I had to Of course, run the big lead from the lug. And then this is like a Delco Remy style GM alternator. So I had to run a signal wire, and then I'm installing a exciter wire that basically gives 12 volts from there to the alternator to tell it to turn on. But you have to install this diode so that it can't backfeed voltage to that. So hopefully all this is wired up correctly. I've got the diode the right way, and my charging system should be working now. I got the diode in place, and I got all that shrink wrapped. So the alternator is completely hooked up. I ran ground wire from the back up to the battery just to make sure there wasn't, no matter what, there wasn't any funny business there in regards to grounding. But yeah, everything's really coming together here soon. I have some wire wrap that I'll use eventually to cover that all up and really make it look sleek. I've got to eventually shorten these two distributor wires, but that's quick and easy. Doing the brakes, so working on those. I have an update here for you soon on that, but waiting on brake shoes. But once that's done, I'll be able to put the front hubs back together, everything all greased up and new parts, and I'll do the same to the back. Working on the brakes some more, and turns out that the brake shoes that came with the Jeep were the wrong style, so they're not going to fit. But maybe I'll have something I can use them on, or I could probably resell them. But, so I went ahead and made an order to Kaiser Willys, and they hooked me up with new brake shoes for all four corners. So no worries there. I've got a nice tool now for to use to install and remove the axle nuts. These right here. So that'll help with tightening the wheel bearings and everything. The other ones were all jacked up. Somebody used a screwdriver to hammer them on and off because it's a really tight fit and a really big nut, so they probably didn't have the right size. Don't try that at home. Alright, well, that's one completed. Doesn't look too bad. New wheel cylinder, new shoes, new bolts down below. There's a little piece there busted off that, you know, holds the shoe in place, but I'm really not too worried about it. Well, I had to drop some cash to pick up a special tool to get these rear axles off, because basically the axle flange that, you know, the wheel bolts to is connected to the axle, and on top of that the brake drum's behind it. So I got to pull all that off to be able to service the brakes. And so now that I got this, I'm going to go ahead and start ripping off the rear axle flange. And yeah, so it should be pretty straightforward. Just got to pull off this nut. Got to get rid of this nail that somebody beat in here first. That might be a little bit of trouble, but shouldn't be too bad. Once that's done, pull off the nut, put on the puller, then hopefully this will slide right off and I'll have access to the brakes. Okay, now that that's knocked out, I'll replace that wheel cylinder, spring, replace those shoes, the adjusters down there, and yeah, they'll pretty much be overhauled. And I'll also send out, or not send out, but give this brake drum to my buddy to have him surface it, and so it'll have nice fresh braking surfaces on the drum, and yeah, should stop really well after that. Well, that's that. I'll just clean up the backing plate and put fresh parts on. Okay, let's get the new stuff on. And just like that, new wheel cylinder, new spring, new adjuster bolts, and new shoes. So the brakes are more or less rebuilt. And of course, that has to be done on all four corners. I got the fronts done already. I got to do the other side on the rear, but it's all more or less the same thing every time, so I'm not going to bother filming it. And yeah, so I'll get all those I'll finish up getting the other side knocked out and catch up with you after that. Gotten the old master cylinder removed. Tell it's a little past ripe. Was smart and thought ahead and ordered a new bolt and I guess brass connector there for the brake lines front and rear, and then here's a new brake switch. I think this controls brake lights. And then yeah, of course, new master cylinder. It's been sitting for a little bit, so it's starting to look a little bit like that one, but internally it should do the job. So I'm going to start by bench bleeding it and getting all that done, and then hopefully be able to plumb it right in and not have too many issues. So as it turns out, I wasn't able to turn down 3 out of the 4 drums because I had a heck of a time. Well, I wasn't able to get the person I had doing them wasn't able to get the rear hubs with the drum still attached able to spin true. So I had to get them off the hub, and when I tried to do that, I realized the 12-ton press I had at my disposal just wasn't enough. And so decided to just bite the bullet and buy new stuff, and that ended up being a pain to get everything put together, but I got 2 newly built ones for the rear, as well as 1 newly built one for the front. One of the pluses there as well is that I no longer have any left-hand thread lug nuts on this, so I don't have to worry about anyone down the road trying to lefty-loosey it and tightening it and breaking it off. So that's one plus in a storm of a bunch of crap, but now I can finally get started on this and get this installed. The key is in. So now I just got to put a nut on the outside here and tighten up the brake shoes till I get a little bit of drag. And then this corner should be set up. The driver's side rear is now installed, so got 2 out of the 4 corners. The rear completely done. The keyway on this side, which goes between the axle flange and the axle itself, was like 100 times easier on this side. I was able to just push it in with my thumb. I'm guessing on that side, the new flange or even the axle itself must have had a burr in it somewhere and it was just hanging it up. So luckily I got like a special puller tool, so if I do ever have to pull that side, it shouldn't be hard. But yeah, this side went smooth, so glad to say that's done. Just got to get started on the front and get those knocked out. All 4 corners are now installed. Brakes are adjusted. Hubs are put on the front. And this is the one I'm reusing, of course, that was turned down. So now that that's done, all the brake lines are hooked up and I believe mostly bled. It's time to put the wheels on. All right, wheels are on. All 4 corners back on the ground. So now I guess it's just a test drive time to see how the brakes are working. And unfortunately it's dark and rainy, so the test drive will have to wait for later, but I'm happy I'm finally here. A windy one today, but the Jeep's all back on the ground. Cleaned it out. And it's ready to go. So I'm actually gonna go take it over to my family's wood or timber property a few miles away. It's got some cool trails and a creek to cross, so hoping to get some good shots. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
Want to. Isn't gonna though. Oh yeah, he's dead. That's rigor mortis.
Yeah, that was pretty, he was pretty tight.
All right, let me hit this with some speed and really get
Yeah.
up here. Well, it's back inside. I would say that was one pretty successful day out. It certainly four-wheel drive. It works and everything. That was pretty fun. I'm excited to keep kind of fixing up some driveline stuff, like front drive shaft. One of the U-joints is shot, so I got the parts to fix that. Just got to do it. What else off the bat? I think that's about it for now. Oh yeah, I got a new shock plate there that I'm going to put on the passenger side to so that I can mount the shock correctly. And once I have that done, I will hopefully get all 4 new shocks on that I have and do the gauges. I got headlights to put in, so I'll get all the stuff to wire that up. And yeah, so just keep it going. But it's awesome to finally have it running, driving, and stopping, and really proving itself. It's earned its keep, that's for sure. So I'm excited for that. So more to come, but good stopping point for now.